item 13, the notice of motion. So this is moved by Sarah Templeton, seconded by Mike Davidson. So Sarah, I'll invite you to introduce this item.
Thank you. So I wasn't aware that the removal of library book fines was a thing that was happening across the world and across the country until actually just after the long-term plan, when I saw in a tweet from Pippa Combe that Auckland City Council had decided to do just that. Since then, some digging around and some talking to the Auckland Library staff had led to a stack of information and background information. The knowledge that a whole pile of cities across the country were doing it as well, including just a couple of weeks ago Dunedin. Our neighbours in Selwyn and Waimakariri no longer have library book fines either. Libraries are the cornerstone of democracy. Information's free and equally available to everyone. It's one of the last places that you can go inside in a city where no one expects you to spend money and that you feel welcome. But it's currently not true in Christchurch. We've got barriers that are currently discourage or actively block members of our community from accessing the books and services that their rates pay for. So since I've raised this, I've had a couple of people, more than a couple of people, get in contact with some stories. So I'd just like to read you one ahead of the rest of it. Dear Sarah, I'm so pleased that you raised this issue. I recently returned my books 8 days late. I'm in the middle of a family crisis and I missed some emails from the library. Now they've put the debt collectors onto me for $58.60 and limited my daughter's accounts to 2 books each until I pay. My daughters are 11 and 14 and it makes me so sad that the library has rejected them when they needed it most. I did try once to pay my fine online, but it isn't a service the library offers. It's hard to get into a physical library with work hours. I didn't find out till I was at the library with Miss 11. We'd chosen special books and went to check them out. I found my account was blocked. Then Miss 11 found hers was limited. We went to the counter to find out what was going on, and that was when we found out that they'd limited her account too, when she'd done nothing wrong. It was heartbreaking watching her return her specially selected books. What kind of library does that to a young child who's keen to read? When I questioned the library on their policy of punishing children for their parents' mistakes, they said that they did it on behalf of ratepayers. They did it to stop parents whose account had been blocked checking out books using their children's account. But this really only punishes the innocent children, the children who possibly need the library most as a place of safety and escapism. I don't have $58.60 to spare. How many Christchurch children currently have their accounts limited because of the mistakes their parents have made? It's a disgrace that they did this to her on behalf of ratepayers. What are we teaching our children with this policy? And that's because as a city council sitting around this table, we require every year the libraries to collect these fees, these fines. And it's going to be our choice, hopefully, if we ask for the report on it, as to whether we stop asking the libraries to collect them. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've got the notice of motion. We've also got a memo from staff in front of us. It's worth noting that what we're doing today is simply noting that other councils have taken the approach that's proposed and requesting a report. The substantive debate on this would come on the back of the report when we'd got the full information in front of us. So today isn't the debate on whether we do this or not. Today is the question of whether we want a report brought so that we can have that debate. Leanne.
The debate is now. Yep.
Unless there are questions on the memo. If there are questions on the memo, they are in order or not? Given that we've, I mean, all right, can somebody tell me whether questions on the staff memo that's attached are in order or not?
I think we should.
I mean, given that we've got a memo from staff in front of us, I would have expected if any questions were going to be asked on that, they would be to staff. But I need some guidance on this because there's a suggestion that questions on the memo are not in order because it's a notice of motion. Equally, we've got information in front of us that people have got questions about.
Actually, yeah, I've just had some good advice from the back of the room. Is we did have questions on the stadium notice of motion. So
Right. Well, let's. All right. So, Jimmy, you've got a question on the memo. Oh, to Sarah. Right.
Your notice motion focus on the adults plus the children, or just the children because they have no income, they couldn't afford to pay the fine. Yeah. But adults, they have income, But also I'm concerned this fine, library fine, whether part of council library policy by law or not. This is my question.
Okay. So it's currently a council policy to collect the fines on late books for adults. So children are already, they don't have any fines if children are late. Yeah. But even if adults are fined, lots of adults can't afford the fines either, and they don't come back to the library anymore. But it's a council policy, it's not law or anything. Yeah. So all we're doing today is asking for a report with all of that information in it, so that then we can make the proper decision.
Okay, thank you.
So there are questions that people might have that'll be more appropriately asked when we've got the report in front of us than today, when all we're doing is noting what some other councils have done and calling for that report. Yep. So it's important to distinguish that. Okay. So we can now move. So this is moved by Sarah and seconded by Mike. Is there any debate? Leanne?
I really strongly support this. I think it's important that we get the advice that we need in order to make a rational decision. And I was very, I wasn't aware of this as an issue until it was kind of brought to our attention as a potential for including within the annual plan. And then it did occur to me when Sarah moved this notice of motion or talked about bringing a notice of motion, that it actually makes sense to do it earlier, because it's not necessarily going to be the single focus of the annual plan, and it shouldn't be. This is a standalone subject which we could address as a council before then. What has struck me is that both of our neighbours do this. So Waimakariri and Selwyn, they're two of the ones that do it. And it will be really interesting as part of the report to get very explicit advice from them about the impact that it's had on uptake of library services. Because my quick understanding of the situation, that's why I'm looking forward to the report staying firmly within the bounds of the debatable motion. I was very pleased to see that in fact their initial experience has been that uptake has increased and that more books are being taken out, and that in fact the way people are actually returning books that they've had sitting at the back of a bookshelf but haven't dared to wander into a library again, that's also occurred as well. So I congratulate Sarah for bringing this forward as an item for us to discuss, but to get a full report that enables us to look at all of the pros and cons, and I suspect the pros are going to far outweigh the cons. So thank you very much for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you. Melanie?
Thanks, Sarah. And it was interesting you pointed about the library hours. I'm glad that we didn't reduce them last long-term plan. And I was, it actually made me think, I was impressed during our long-term plan how we had quite a few people come along and do poems. So I found a poem online, and there is one, and it's quite good, so I'm going to read it out. Overdues. What do I do? What do I do? This library book is 42 years overdue. I admit that it's mine, but I can't pay the fine. Should I turn it in or hide it again? What do I do? What do I do?
I can't beat a poem, and I won't try to. But look, I'm supportive of getting the report and looking at it as well. Probably the thing for me is the personal responsibility aspect. But I am keen to see the pros and cons of how that plays out. I guess the other things I'd be really keen to see again, just to give us that proper advice, would be the other option. So whether there's a more of a compassionate consideration ground that may sit with the head of libraries and the like. And also, I guess, some more innovative ways of how we recover the debt. So it may be that we don't actually need to post them out. It might be that email's better or the like. So, look, I don't know. I'm just putting them out there so that I'd be keen to see them when they come back. But, I mean, for a relatively small amount of money, I think it just would be useful to understand whether we're looking at multiple options as opposed to just the one. So it'd be useful when that comes back.
Thank you. So who have we got? Phil, Aaron, Anne and Tim.
Thanks. And Sarah, this is sort of a question. Sarah, if I read somewhere, I can't find it. Is it, did we...
We've moved we've moved beyond questions.
Okay, the debate. Okay, this is not a question. Why? Okay, in debate, why are we not just voting on this now? That's a question as well. Instead of wasting a whole lot of staff's time writing up reports, if we're all happy with it, why don't we just do it?
Oh, Jesus, you just put three.
Let me count the
Oh,
ways.
sorry.
I'll do that in my writer reply at the end.
I'm sure if Ian Thompson was in the room, he would give us some reasons why.
He would
And it's
tell you.
around having the right information in front of us. So I'm now answering the question that you shouldn't have asked. It's about having the
you
right
very much.
information in front of us to make a decision. Who is next? Aaron.
Yeah, thank you, and quite well said, Phil. You'll be a very unorthodox mayor. But might not be a bad thing. Thank you, Sarah, for bringing this. I think it makes sense. Let's at least just see what it looks like. I'm not a big fan of fines. They're there to drive behaviour, and sometimes there's unintended consequences, like the Mayor said. And I think there's other fines we have in the city we could look at after this one as well, that we could potentially get rid of to drive some positive behaviours. Maybe. Good luck.
Thank you. Anne and then Tim.
Kia ora, thank you, and delighted that we are addressing this issue. Thank you, Sarah, for bringing it to our attention, and really look forward to the report. In a previous role, I would visit homes where there were no books, and if we are going to be a city of opportunity and equity, we need to provide the opportunity for people to have access to reading. So this will be a terrific step along the way, and it sounds like it will be something that we will all be supportive of once we get that information. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you, Sarah, for bringing this. I think it's outstanding. As a slow reader myself, I gave up for a while with the library, as there was no way I could finish a book within the time frame that was out. There's a number of games that are like that as well, but we won't go there. But I just think if there's no fine, there's no cost in recovering it. So I think I always wondered if it was actually cost more to get the fine paid. But in the report, it'd be great to know that a lost or missing book is not the same as a late book. So we've got to be conscious of the true costs of what we're doing. So I'm really looking forward to this and totally support it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I also support this notice of motion, and thank you, Sarah, bring this to the table. That's a practical issue, particularly regarding the library. We are encouraging, people can borrow those books rather than put on the shelf. However, the paragraph 2, very, very good. That's in response to the staff, the memo, particular conclusion. Because as a councillor, we need to make decision. We need to gather the more sufficient information to make decision. Then, so I think that's a balance in this one. Yes, I'm happy to go ahead.
Celeste.
I'm just want to echo what everyone else has said. Well done, Sarah. I think it's really great that we're doing that, particularly during COVID. I think there's a lot of people. I always seem to forget to get any books out of the library, but having access to libraries, particularly when people are stuck at home with kids, I think it is a really important service. And also, in terms of mitigating people's stress levels at the moment, having fines for particularly those that can't afford to pay is just one thing we can do to help people. So yeah, well done for bringing this forward.
So equally, I'd thank Sarah for raising this issue, and to Mike for supporting Sarah in doing that by seconding the notice of motion. Clearly, this raises some issues around some inclusivity issues, social outcomes, and some probably unintended outcomes that we'll become a lot more aware of when we see the report. Whilst I appreciate the eagerness of some to to rush to a decision today. I think it's fair to say that we do need the report so that we can make a proper, robust and well-informed decision. I would expect the report would reference the experience of other councils, noting that there are other councils around the country that have implemented this. I'm also very keen to know what the financial impacts would be, and particularly around timing. Because if we do determine that there are benefits to doing this, I think we'd be eager to realise them as quickly as possible. So that speaks to some commentary on timing out of the normal annual plan LTP cycle as well. So I think there are some good things that we expect to see in that report. I imagine staff have got a lot of that information already, and then we can move pretty quickly to a decision at that time. So yeah, I acknowledge the fact that this has been brought, and I'm strongly supportive of getting the report. Sarah, did you want to say something to close the debate?
I will. The personal responsibility issue has been one that's been raised by a few, and I get it. However, we're all human, life is complicated, and things get in the way of many of our good intentions. So here's another quick story. Charlotte got a $60 fine while in hospital earlier this year. It wasn't a priority of mine at the time to go to the library to pay it off in person because there's no option to pay online. So the charges were sent to the debt collection agency, and additional fees were charged for admin and mailing out a paper letter. When I was well enough to get into the library and try and talk to someone about why I couldn't return my library books by their due date and see if I could get the charges wiped, they couldn't offer me any assistance and instead gave me a business card and suggested I come contact someone within CCC. Well, here I am at CCC. I'd have loved to make the decision today. I think it's a no-brainer. But we do need to make sure that Ian's okay with the process and that Sam's okay with the information. I'm looking forward to the report coming and would love for it to be a Christmas present for all the city, if at all possible.
So I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? That's carried. Thank you.